Welcome to Base Building with Daisy.
Page 3, New Editor Features. So, if you've gotten into the editor since page 3 went live, you know that the editor looks a little different. Changes were made to improve the organization in the editor. Plus, there are several additions to the search feature I hope you'll find very useful. But before we get into that, I wanted to let those of you who haven't yet heard know that the stars that were on the surface tiles with collision, the ones that stay visible outside of the editor, are now gone. The dev Cobalt took them off for us, so now these tiles can be any solid color and not have the stars showing on them, which means they're able to be used for a variety of things, such as snow, sand, walls, streets, and so on. They don't react to light, however, so keep that in mind. This means that the lighter colors will almost glow, and they will not get lighter or darker in response to light sources, which really makes them ideal for things such as office windows in a cityscape. They look like lights at night. This new usability has excited a lot of people, but I think the editor changes are also very exciting. Let's start where I hope many will start, which is with the new information in the editor window. Notice that now there is a search identifier in the search field. Did you know we had a search field? So many people didn't realize it was there because it was just a black space. Thank you, Faultline, who worked hard to put that word in because apparently the UI of the editor is very difficult to adjust, which is why the search scroll tab and arrows that people have also complained about are not bigger and or a different color. It's trickier than one might think to be able to change those. However, the search feature has been upgraded, so now perhaps you won't need those changes as much. To see what changes were made, let's look at the information that's been added under the Options button. This is an important button with lots of great information for you. When I click on the Options button, a menu appears. At the top is the recently added Base Editor Help and Tips. I click on this and get a window with some information I am asked frequently, so I'm very glad to see this here where people can access it immediately. This includes information such as / commands everyone should know, like the command to enter the editor from anywhere, the stuck command, and how to set a supergroup passcode. By the way, there are more helpful commands for bases listed in the Game Help menu along with other relevant information that's all been updated. Just press H to access that in-game. Back to the editor help. Next, it lists the keys that control editing commands and what they do by themselves and in combination. Some of them are very handy, and I bet not all of them are commonly known, like the command to select a section of the base, even if objects are in the way, or using Shift to select an object that you can't click on because it's covered by another object. Then we have using search functions. This is important and a huge part of what was changed. What's important to know is that now you can search by categories or characteristics, as well as the item name and even by its tab. You used to only be able to search by item name, and you had to get it exactly. If, for instance, something was made of wood but didn't have wood in the name, but you didn't remember what it was called, that meant you had to search through the editor. Or, if you wanted a piece that looked like something specific, you just searched through the editor. With over 5,800 items, it's a small wonder not many did. But now things are different. This search searches the Info tab, and lots of information has been added to the Info tab. You will find the Info tab in the Object window. Here, there may be a description of the item and sometimes some notes on unique uses for the item. Then there is more information, such as FX comments. Have you ever noticed that some items disappear in part or completely behind objects like glass? And some change their appearance noticeably. Now, such effects are noted so that you can either plan for them or decide to choose another object. Then you have keywords or tags noted with a hashtag. Now, the search is a string search. It is looking for an exact match to what you type in. The more you type, the fewer options will match exactly. That was what was so frustrating before, because if you did not recall what the exact name of an object was, you had to scan all of the tabs for it because a lot of items were in unpredictable tabs. The Freedom Phalanx door, for instance, was under Office, but the Mansion door and several other doors were under Structures, while the rest were under Doors and Windows. rocks were in 2 different tabs, and so on. So now you can still search by name. In fact, you can search by name only by starting the name of the item with a colon. This is because it will be listed as item name with no spaces, and so the colon is part of the unique string. So it will only work if the colon is put at the very front of the object's name and there are no spaces. However, you do not have to have the colon to get the match. You just need a character string that matches the object you want specifically, while eliminating those you do not need. You can also search by tab by adding a parenthesis to the front of the word. This will bring the entire contents of the tab to you without having to scroll for it. Object names and tab locations are listed in the Info tab as well. But back to the keywords. The keywords were added so you can search by characteristics and classifications. Keywords need to be both unique enough to be easily differentiated from other keywords and intuitive enough that people can figure them out. If not, having them listed is also a good option, and you can see some are listed here. Others, hopefully, are fairly intuitive, although I am positive there will be words that do not come naturally to some. So I'm sure there will be some disagreement and a learning curve on this change, and that will frustrate some. But overall, I think it's a positive development. And if you want to know the keyword to find a favorite item other than its name, check the Info tab. Hashtags include things such as size, which only includes the very small and the very large items. See the Info window for definitions. Also noted is the apparent material the item is made from, such as wood, stone, metal, etc., as well as the categories or labels that apply to that item, such as what it is and what sort of thing. For example, is it a couch, a cabinet, a shelf? Is it arcane or tech, and so on. Colors are usually noted, as well as the completeness of the mesh coverage and basic and usable shapes of or on an object, such as flat-sided, curved, sphere, etc. Then there are special qualities tagged, such as if it has no collision or has sound, if it's got a light source, if it can be tinted in wear, and FX. And note, here, some objects can be seen as FX by the editor in that they will disappear behind an alpha channel blocker, noted as FX blockers. They don't necessarily have to look like what you think of as an effect. FX blockers can vary in effectiveness. Not every FX blocker blocks every effects completely effectively. Some block all of the effects noted as effects that vanish, and some will only block most of them, but if it can be blocked by any of them, it's noted, which is nice. And finally, some of the many possible uses are noted on some items, creative uses collected from experienced builders. So if, for instance, you want to know how to make snow, try searching for #snow, just to use one example. So let me show you some searches and the differences you can create with different search options. I'm going to search for sand. Here you will see items that have the word sand in their name, like ampersand and sandwich. This is the problem with a string search. It comes back with exact matches, but depending on the word, those may not be anything like what you want. But you can see there is more than that here. These other items have sand in their description, which if you read it will tell you why that object is listed there. Now we are going to do #sand, and now only the things tagged with that as a category or a use are here. Unfortunately, we still do not have sand as an item in the editor, but here are things people have used. You might notice muddy water tiles here, and that's a surprise. But if you tint the surface tiles a sandy hue and then place a tinted muddy water over it so that its surface is just barely above the surface tile, it actually does look like sand. There are other tips in here if you search for things like snow and ice. Now to do the same thing with wall. If you type wall without the hashtags, you will get a lot of results, including this rubber ducky, which, when you look to see why that was in the results, the Info tab says you can even use this for handholds on a rock wall, among other things. So searching without hashtags can bring up things in the description that might not have been common enough to be noted as a use, as well as things that have wall in the object name. If I add the hashtag, now I only get things I could use to make a wall or are a wall, but it's still a lot of items. So if I look just in the tab that contains walls, which is called Walls and Openings, there are more ready-made walls, if that's what I'm wanting. But I think it's quicker to bring the tab to me. And to do that, I type parentheses walls, and that is enough to bring me the whole tab. This requires knowing enough of the name of the tab, so to create a unique string, starting with the open parentheses, but many tabs only require 2 or 3 letters to get a match. You may note in some tags it does not pull every example of that sort of item. For instance, for flat-sided, it will pull the letters and symbols that have all flat sides. Now, of course, all of the letters have flat faces, but the ones that are typically used in things are ones you can lay side by side with no gaps, like the bar shape of the capital I's or the pipes. In banners, only the arcane banners are tagged for such things as walls and carpeting because the wooden rod they hang on is much easier to hide than the metal tech rods, which have larger discs on them as well. This helps cut down on some of the items that are returned with some searches, but for really large searches, try the multiple word search. Now, let's say I have no idea what I can use, but I know a couple of things that need to be true. In this case, let's say I want to know what options we have that could make a wooden floor. So I'm going to type #wood, #flat. As you can see, this brings back items that seem to be made of wood, with at least one flat side. It's all kinds of wood, so it's up to me to sort through things to see what it is I need. And you might note the carnival stool there, which is partly made of wood, but the flat surface is not wood, so you might get some results that are not consistent with what you're looking for. But it's already a much more narrow result than having to search the whole editor to see where pieces you want might be hiding. But if you'd like to narrow the search even more, add another characteristic onto the search. So here I add another comma, and now I'm going to add #floor. This will bring up only the things known or commonly used as floors that are also wood. Let's compare that to if I had added #square instead. These would all be all of the items that have perfectly square corners, which can be important on a floor so you don't have gaps. But as you can see, this also includes the beams, so to get rid of those and further define my search, I'll add back in #floor, and now we have only the squared wooden things that can be used as a floor. If I want to know what objects are tintable and made out of metal, I can use the multiple search for that. Or how about if there are any objects that are tintable and also do not have collision? This is a very useful tool for when you are not sure what piece you need. You just need it to be a certain kind of a thing, and you can now add as many qualities as you're looking for. Here's the really great part. They do not have to be in the exact order or according to the phrasing listed in the item name, but just characteristics you know you want or need in what you're looking for. By the way, there's no testing like large group testing, and this is all new. So there are bound to be searches that return things that are a surprise, and searches that don't return what they should because maybe a tag was missed. So if you find something you think isn't the way it should be, please let me know. I can and will see that any changes that need to be made get to the right place. Here's a quick summary of the tabs, since I don't think you want me to go through each tab. Tabs were left alone as much as possible. Although the overall number was reduced, they are alphabetized except for the function-related ones at the front, and a few were renamed or added for clarity. All the base items you can actually use, and none that you don't actually need, have been placed into base services. Obsolete and inactive items have been moved to tabs such as Arcane and Tech, or wherever they fit the best. Teleporters remain in tabs separated by style, since you must still match Arcane to Arcane and Tech to Tech when placing teleporters and beacons. I will note that the word letter has been added to the alphabet letters and number to the numbers so that you can now search for specific letters or sizes of letters. Kitchen and food related to dining is now under Dining. Commercial holds things you'd see in stores and signage, and you'll note several new tabs that hold a collection you couldn't find altogether before, such as crystals, fire, holiday items, and now all ruined and destroyed or garbage type items are together under ruins and waste. Skies were put into FX ambient, since that's what they are, ambient effects. And in general, things have been collected so that the same sorts of items are all together as much as possible. I say as much as possible because there is a lot of cross-categorization in the editor, things that can be categorized more than one way. I suggest you go through the tabs and take a good look at what has been put where, although the search should help you out in finding things. So to summarize what I feel are the most important tips for using the new editor arrangement, search is now based off of the Info tab, and a lot of information has been added to the Information tab, so searches as you have done them before may pull up many more items than before. Using a hashtag will limit the search to items tagged with that word, not just items that happen to have that string in the Info tab. If you remember an item's name, you can still search by that, though you may need to add more to the string to make it unique if the word you're using is a common material or a characteristic. Search results begin with the first letter typed. They narrow as you type more and make the string more and more unique, matching fewer items until you reach the results you want, typically well short of the entire string. Use a colon at the front of an item's name with no spaces to search by the first word of an item. Use an open parentheses with the tab name to bring the contents of the tab to you, again with no spaces. Use a two-word search to refine your search results or to search for items by qualities you want. Read the Info tab to discover useful tips and information about the items that you may want to know. And that's all for now. Thanks for watching, and I hope this helped.